What's up? As you can see, I'm walking in the rain, Morgantown, headed to the Monongalia Arts Center to see an art and exhibit. My good friend Mark Kemp, really good friend of mine, his cousin's in town from Wales, and he has an art exhibit. So that's where I'm headed to. I'm gonna check out this storytelling art exhibit here at the Monongalia Arts Center. That's where I'm at, and I'm going to check it out.
I'm Road Brooks, for those of you that may not know me, and if you don't know me, I hope you'll make yourself known to me tonight, so I'll know you. I'm the director of the Monongalia Arts Center, and we are so happy to have Peter Stevenson with us for this month, plus these other fabulous artists that he's brought with him through their artwork. It's really amazing. Peter is a multifaceted artist. He's a literary artist, a visual artist, and a performing artist. So he's got the bases pretty much covered. I think he agrees he was born to do what he's doing, and he does it very well. So I'm going to turn it over to him, and he's going to tell you a little bit about himself, and then he'll go on with the other things that he has to present to us.
Wel, diolch yn fawr iawn. Croeso i Mac, croeso i'r Drain Morgan, croeso i'r arddangosfa Gwerin Cymraeg, Celf Gwerin Cymraeg. Ledigon, swnio'n a methdithion. And all I said the word was welcome. Welcome here to the Mac, to Morgantown, and to this exhibition of Welsh folk art, which is called Cures, Charms and Curses. And this will all become apparent. Don't be too worried. It will all become apparent as the evening goes on. Now, people have been asking me since I got here, why Wales? Why Welsh? What is this about Wales and West Virginia? Well, I guess some of you here know, and I know a couple of you I've been talking to, that this town was founded by a Welsh family. Morgan. Morgan is a Welsh name. And for those of you who don't know, Morgan, a môr in Cymraeg, in Welsh, is the sea. And you don't have any here, but you've got the Monongalia River. Morgan is by the sea. Morgan was the name for any people in Wales who lived by the sea. So you kind of qualify, you live by the river, you can twist the point. So that was why. That's the thinking behind this. Secondly, I have family here. My family, who I'm delighted to say many of them, most of them are actually here. And they came here back in the 1960s, wasn't it, Janet? You came here. So I had family connections here for all that length of time as well. It's nearly 60 years, which is, you know, you almost become local after that length of time. But also a lot of us have been thinking a great deal about the Welsh migrations, because there are records of the Welsh coming here back in the mid-1700s. That's about as far back as any kind of written records go. There's plenty of written records about the Welsh coming to Ohio, and that was because they were the farmers, and they were the slightly more literate people, and they left records, they left house records, diaries, hidden up in the attics. But the people who came here, you imagine, they came over the Alleghenies to Pittsburgh, having sailed across the ocean 6 weeks to 8 weeks in the most awful conditions, over the Alleghenies, Pittsburgh, and then they had that choice, the Ohio or the Mon. The ones who went down the Ohio got well documented, the ones who came here didn't. And this is what we're about. We're trying to piece back together, if we haven't got written historical evidence, or not much of it, what about the visual arts? What about folk tales, stories, the folk arts? They tell us a great deal, and that's what this exhibition is all about. And I will demonstrate. I'm sure some of you know what this is. Anybody? Frankie, yeah. Now you see, if I said that in West Wales, they would Nobody would. Well, people do know now, because I've been doing these in West Wales for a good few years. But you see, people here, you know what this is. Now, I'm going to get my apology in first. I was bringing my proper working cranky, which is a lovely red box, and I was going to bring it over, and by the time I was packing the bags, can you imagine all this fitting into a couple of bags? The cranky wouldn't fit in. And I rang my friend Toby, who's a wood carver, and he makes gigantic wooden puppets, and I said, oh, can you knock me one together very quickly before I leave? And he made this one out of plywood, and it's held together with kind of wooden pegs. He did it in about half a day. Now, I gave it a test run and the whole thing just fell apart. So, I'm going to try desperately and hold it together. And I'm going to tell you a little story. And this story joins the west of Wales and the West Virginia. And it's all about an old lady. An old lady who lived in a place called Bank Penrhw on the west coast of Wales. And she looked out of her cottage window to the sea, looking west, straight towards America. Except Ireland is in the way, but didn't want anything, she was looking towards America, of course. Her name was Betty Grucker. Crook-backed Betty. She walked with a limp and a crooked back. Now, old Betty was what we in West Wales would call a gwyddanus. At least that's the old Welsh word. Some people would be quite unkind and call it radio, witchcraft. An old granny witch. Very like the old granny women that you have right here now in West Virginia. Now, old Betty, she was one of these old ladies that you meet so frequently in the west of Wales. 1,000 wrinkles around the eyes, a single yellow tooth wobbling unnervingly in the breeze from her breath, and a single grey hair in the middle of her chin. And she could make potions, tinctures, from liquids, from well water, from the waters of Bank Penrhw. But these were very special potions. They were, what were they?
Love potion.
Love potion. How did you know? How did you know? Well, it's the thing that everybody wants love, don't they? In all its many forms and facets. Well, old Betty supplied that for the folk of Ceredigion, and they queued up outside her door, all waiting for their dose of love potion. And one day, 2 young women came calling for their potion. One was the maid of the big mansion at Plaswen, and she had with her the little baby she was looking after, and his name was Cedric. Also came the maid from the Ridderverdwig farmhouse, the poorest of the poor, and she had a little baby called Eleanor. Well, old Betty, she gave the 2 maids their love potion, but then she was a mischievous old soul. And what did she do? She gave the love potion to the 2 babies. Well, time passed, as it always does in fairy tales. In the blink of a crow's eye, as long as an endless final heartbeat. And 18 years passed. And after 18 years, old Betty, she was still there at Bank Penrhw. Even more wrinkles round her eyes. She still had the solitary yellow tooth wobbling unnervingly in the breeze from her breath. And she still had the single grey hair in the middle of her chin. And one day there was and a young woman walked in asking for love potion. Well, old Betty sat her down by the fire, and she was mixing the tinctures and potions from the misty bottles on the shelves around her house. And a young man appeared asking for a drink of water. The moment the eyes of the young woman and the young man met, they raced into each other's arms. They started kissing and cuddling and canoodling right there in the middle of Betty's flagstone floor. Well, she took the poker to them, and she stuck the poker between them and stopped them, and they were trying to kiss each other. And old Betty asked them their names. And in between all the kissing, the young man said, Cedric. And the young woman said, Eleanor. The two babies that old Betty had given the love potion to all those years before. And she explained to them that they were now doomed to be in love forever. But frankly, it didn't seem to worry them at all. They ran off together, they spent a whole year, well, you know, do I need to explain, kissing and cuddling. And after a year, Kedrig went to see his father. The Squire of Plasware, the richest man in Ceredigion, which wasn't saying a lot, because Ceredigion's a very poor land. Now, the old squire forbade the marriage. He said, no son of mine is going to marry the daughter of a poor farmer. Well, Eleanor's parents forbade the marriage too, because they said no daughter of theirs was going to marry the stuck-up son of the stuck-up old Squire of Plasware. So, Kedrick and Eleanor, they did the carrier gwelly, the bedroom love. By which I mean, Kedrick put a ladder up to Eleanor's window, he helped her down, they took a little boat and they sailed all the way across Cardigan Bay to the one place in Wales where the preachers would marry elopees, Barnet. And there they had a honeymoon, and when they returned they discovered that the old Squire of Plasware in his anger had burst a blood vessel and he was 6 feet under the ground. Kedrick and Eleanor, they filled that old mansion with so much love and so many babies that Kedrick couldn't even remember how many they'd had. And Eleanor couldn't remember their names. But the whole area was just so full of love. And it was all thanks to old Betty Brooker. And you know, I can tell you now, exclusively, just for you here, old Betty is still there. She's still there in her little cottage. She's got even more wrinkles around the eyes, the solitary yellow tooth fell out years ago, but her little grey hair is still there. And she twirls it, and she looks out across the water to America, and she's thinking to herself, maybe my love potions would work in West Virginia. Be careful what's in the wine, the water. Because it's said that old Betty is responsible for all the marital bliss in the whole of Wales and most of the marital strife. Betty Brooker.
Well, that was real cool. I love the storytelling aspect of that. That was really, really cool. And just come to find out, Mark was telling me, because about that he met my father at the West Virginia Writers Conference, because Peter, his cousin here, found out, was introduced to the Appalachian poets, which my father's a part of, Appalachian poets. I know some Appalachian poets. Big shout out to Crystal Good. I think she's an Appalachian poet. That was crazy that he met my father at the West Virginia Writers Conference, and but very cool. I enjoyed this very much. Great art, great storytelling. His cousin Peter seems very, very cool. I'm gonna get to know him better. But yeah, man, Mac putting on some good events. I need to go check it out. The connection from Wales to West Virginia and Welch, that's just crazy. And I forget what he said about Morgantown, the land by the sea. I'm gonna have to look that up. It was really good. That was an awesome, awesome exhibit. Very cool. Thank you, Mark Kemp, for inviting me and meeting your family. And yeah, dope stuff.